Welcome, friends, to the second part of Shifting from Surviving to Thriving series. For those of you who may not have had the opportunity to view or listen in on the first episode, Terry Good talked about her own journey moving away from corporate work and shifting her masculine role and energy into the feminine. Terry is now thriving and shared how she made the conscious effort to work through her own challenges and is able to support people through life coaching as she offers guidance with different techniques focused on the balance between fitness, well-being, and self-empowerment. Well, our next guest is also one of my go-to persons who, through her own journey, has literally done all the groundwork, really going to the root. I truly consider a phoenix rising. Haley Niichel is an inspiration because she has ventured into the deep recesses of her own internal landscape and brings forth a deeper understanding of what healing is, which allows her to sit with others and witness them in their truth. For those of you who are not familiar with Haley, she is a 500-hour RYT meditation teacher and breathwork facilitator and consciousness coach as she weaves life and spiritual coaching with the modalities of yoga, which includes breathwork, kriya, meditation, to assist those who are navigating their spiritual awakenings or major life transitions. Of course, I've had the opportunity to work with Haley one-on-one, and with my own experience, she will go as deep as you are willing to venture, shining the way with her real approach. And through the years, I've really witnessed her and watching the expansion she has created within the Des Moines community and beyond, due to her courageous and willingness to live with intention. And there's no pun intended right there. What I absolutely love about Haley is how she shows up real and sometimes even raw, because that's what it takes to consciously shift, to allow the human side of us to be seen. And this is what really builds that connection with others. So without further ado, I welcome Haley. Haley, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Wow. Thanks, April. Thanks for that amazing introduction and reflecting some things back at me. It was an honor. Thank you.
Of course,
An
of
honor to be
course.
here.
When I started thinking about the series, you were right there at the top of the list. I was like, oh, go-to person, just witnessing, hearing your story, I think is also very important for others to know a little bit about you and your background and how you got to where you are now, if you wouldn't mind sharing that with us.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, April. So I have been a longtime yoga practitioner. I've been practicing yoga since 2014, and I originally came to the practice because I was incredibly anxious. I was dealing with a lot of inner demons. I've had a lot of mental health struggles over the years, which have lended itself to some issues with substance and addiction. And I was given up for adoption as a baby, which I had a very, tame childhood. I was supported, but I think this created sort of a discomfort, issues with abandonment, bonding, which led to the anxiety, which led to the substance. So I found myself in 2014 kind of at a crux point. I just felt like I needed something. So I started practicing the physical practice of yoga, which most people just think is yoga, right? The poses and the stretching on the mat in group classes. But I constantly had this driver, like there was more. There's like, this isn't it. This is supposed to go deeper than this. It's like I was hungry for something and I didn't know what it was. I sort of had like what I refer to as a dark night of the soul, which some of you listening might not understand what that is. But I was going through an extremely challenging point in my life where I had left a relationship. I had just a deep dislike for my job. I had been working for a very large corporation for many years, and it paid me well, and I had all the lovely benefits. But it was so unfulfilling, and I just knew I was just meant for something more. So at that point, 2018, it was the summer. I hired a life coach. I even felt at the time a little bit ashamed of myself. I was like, why can't I figure my life out? Why am I so unhappy? Why do I feel like there's no meaning behind what I do? And so I made a very large, one of my biggest investments ever in self, and I started meeting with her weekly. And part of that work with her was invoking a meditation practice. And so in the beginning, it looked like guided meditations from her, and then I got this call. It was like, you need to just be quiet. You need to like stop listening to other people and you need to start listening to yourself. And so
Mm.
I would literally, my meditation practice, I wasn't given a technique. I would close my eyes and I would visualize myself in a black void. That was what I would do. I would literally see myself floating in black space. And that actually was pretty profound for me. Within a couple months of doing some inner work with my coach, doing some things that were getting me outside of my comfort zone, helping me examine different aspects of my life. I had been in talk therapy for years, okay, like every week for 7 years. But I was not experiencing the level of growth that I did when I was working with my coach and meditating. So,
Yeah.
um, within a few months, I was becoming sober curious. I spent my first birthday sober in, I don't know, since I was probably 15. And within 6 months of this regular meditation practice and doing this inner work,
Mm.
I came to the conclusion that I was ready to really take the leap. I'm a single parent, one income, and I had a lot of fear around what that looked like. But I just had this knowing that it was like, this is, you've been talking about it when you get drunk at parties for years, that you're going to quit your job, cash out your 401k, live your best life. Let's do it. So I did. I left my job in May of 2019 and I traveled to India for a yoga training because I wanted to deepen my practice. I realized the benefits of meditation.
Mm.
And when I
Yes.
got over there, it was just flowing. It was a training really based in Kundalini and the more subtle practices of Tantra, really working with energy expansion and the energy body and the koshas. And I was exposed to the depth of
Mm.
yoga and the different aspects and how interweaving them could really create this pathway for self-realization, for like knowing yourself, because that was what I was seeking, this like more and more, there's always got to be more. I was
Yes.
seeking the experience of knowing who I was. So I never viewed myself as a teacher. I didn't really know what my plan was. I thought I would find some sort of position in serving others because I wanted to help people experience the same level of healing that I had experienced myself.
Mhm.
And over there, I was given a lot of courage by the mentors and teachers over there that, you have a gift. You should be sharing these. If you're feeling a little bit of resistance to that, let's talk about it because we see something in you. And it took me a while to see that myself, but I started to through the practice of a daily breathwork practice, daily meditation, daily movement, self inquiry, journaling, self examination, integrating some of these experiences I was having in breathwork. And it just kind of kept going from there. I was able to create sustainable way to serve and share these practices with others. And also at the same time be taking myself into very deep aspects of myself, starting to uncover different parts of myself. So that's a little
Yes.
bit about what brought me here.
Yes. And I'm hearing that so much from others that, they've done the work or the social expectations of completing, you know, secondary education, going on for master, all the things, and yet they still feel empty. They're in this doing world, and really, as you beautifully described, of being in that dark space, witnessing you there and sitting with it. is it's just very powerful yet scary at the same time. I'm sure it was.
Mhm.
Can you kind of give a little guidance or insight to that for those who are curious and wanting to know more and wanting to start some sort of practice?
Mhm.
What does that look like, and what were your experiences with that?
Well, I know with starting, any sort of like spiritual practice, because there's so many things to unpack in what you just said, actually.
I know, I
starting
know.
starting any kind of self-care practice, there's loads of resistance that can come up, and so part of it is kind of sitting with your discomfort. I was kind of blessed in the fact that I was over in an ashram for 30 days, and it was just like repetition, right? But what we tend to forget is that the mind is truly it's seeking certainty, because it wants to know the path, it wants to control, it
Mhm.
wants to feel safe. That's how we feel
Yes.
safe, is when we know, okay, I have this job, it's going to give me a retirement, I'll be taken care of, I know. And I think what the mindset shift that had to occur for me is really befriending the unknown, the uncertainty, because that's where all the possibility
Mhm.
lies. If we're just constantly in this state of
Yes.
certainty, we're not expanding, we're not innovating, we're staying stuck. In the yogic tradition, that's karma, right? Action that keeps us
Mhm.
stuck. And so a lot of it is really confronting the inner stuff that comes up with these practices, because it's not as simple as just showing up for breath, right? It just becomes an experience if you're not integrating the downloads and the wisdom and the insights that you receive. um, yeah, I mean, in terms of like starting a regular meditation practice, I do even have like basic practices listed even on my Instagram. I think sometimes people, um, we overcomplicate it, or we go 0 to 100, right? Like when I teach meditation, I titrate, right? We start with a couple minutes a day. That's how I
Mhm.
started. You don't start with 20 to 30 minutes. It'll
Yeah.
overload the mind. You'll just be overwhelmed. So it's kind of like taking it slow, even just invoking a nice box breath, right? Where you inhale for 5 count, hold for 5, exhale for 5, hold out for 5. Starting with that 3 to 5 minutes per day, you will probably feel different after a few days, like
Yeah.
just a little bit more connected with your breath, a little bit more aware of it.
Yes.
I'm
And
not
do you
sure if that
mind
answered
if,
your question.
yeah, and since you talked about that, do you mind just walking us through just whether it's the box or any other type of breath work that's very simple yet easy to remember?
Yeah, absolutely. The box breath, the 4 part breath, is a fundamental breath that I share all the time, and I think people underestimate the potency of it because it can be made more challenging, and you can do it for a longer period of time to really take yourself to a deeper place. So with 4 part breath, I like to, when we're first instructing this, place a hand on the lower belly and a
Okay.
hand on the heart, just to connect the heart space with the power of your navel, because this is actually what drives the breath. We're
Yeah.
not breathing deep enough to experience the relaxation that's available to us. So we have to really engage with the belly, which is tough, especially as a female presenting person in society. We're always told to suck in your belly. We want to
Mhm.
relax the belly and use the navel, your belly button, to really drive the breath. So as you have a hand placed on your low belly, please don't be driving and doing this, obviously. Maybe wait until
Yes,
you can
find
get,
time.
yeah,
Take your time.
find a quiet space, and then just start to softly close your eyes, or if that doesn't feel good, you can gaze at the tip of your nose, and then just start to breathe in and out through the nose without changing anything, and just become aware of the flow of your breath. Is it short, choppy, fluid? Are you feeling tension anywhere? And then notice, after even a couple of rounds, maybe you start to ground and settle just by becoming more aware of what's happening. And then I invite you to draw your awareness down to your belly. And so as you begin your next inhale, you can start to expand your belly like you're blowing up a balloon. Maybe the chest starts to rise at the end of the inhale. And then as you exhale, you start to draw everything in. So you start to draw your belly button in towards the spine and continue to exhale until you can't exhale anymore. And then notice how your next inhale feels, that nice, juicy, deep inhale because you fully released that exhale. So just a few rounds of some deep belly breath. And then we'll start to add in the count. So here's where we're working with all 4 parts of the breath. So let's all together maybe exhale through the nose. And then start to inhale through the nose as you expand the belly, and we're going to silently count to 5. I'm going to count out loud. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then we're going to hold. We're going to stop. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then start to exhale through the nose. Draw the belly in. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then inhale for 5. Holding it in for 5. And then exhaling through the nose for 5, drawing the belly in. Holding the breath 5. Inhale for 5. Holding for 5. Exhaling for 5. Holding for 5. And then take yourself through one more round as you silently count, trying to get a full inhale in that 5 count, really filling up. Noticing what happens as you pause. And then as you exhale, getting that full exhale out in 5, so you can start to use the navel to direct the pace, the depth. And then holding for 5. And then one more round on your own. And then after this round, you can maybe release the hands and just take a couple breaths in and out through the nose. So 4-part breath is actually incredible when done even for, a couple minutes. If you've got some time and you really want to connect with your breath, turn your phone on airplane mode, set a timer for 10 minutes, and just breathe the 4-part breath.
Yes, it's so important. And that was beautiful. Thank you, Haley, for
Mhm.
guiding us and walking us through that. And as I sat there with my hand on my heart and on my belly, just really connecting to my body.
Mhm.
I think that's the big thing with breath, because we're so out here, out into the past and the future, and a lot of mental activity, as you so perfectly described, the mind,
Mhm.
just constantly going. It needs certainty, it's for survival and all those things. And when we bring it down into the breath and witnessing our own body and how it moves with the breath, I call it the body and breath, the dance of the
Mhm.
body and the breath, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, just really feeling that. And I encourage people, for if the 5 which felt too long,
Mhm.
even 3 or
3.
4, just work your way up. Or even holding the breath. Sometimes I found people get a little anxious with that as well. So
Yes.
even just breathing in for a count of 5 and exhaling for a count of 7, just
Mhm.
it's just really testing the waters within your own body. What feels good to you?
It's why I love breath work so much because, um, right, we have these aspects of our existence. We have our physical body, like the meat suit, like it's our physical matter. And then we also have the mind, which is a little bit more intangible, right? It's not something that we can point to on our body and say, oh, there's the mind. The mind exists in all cells. And it's a two-way communication pathway. So for the longest time, I think most of society believed that the mind was informing the body, right? But what we're discovering is that the body is also informing the mind. It's two ways. And so I think a lot of us experience, suffering and pain in our life when we're not in alignment, when our bodies are not in alignment with our mind, when our mind's not in alignment with our body. And connecting the two, we can access that through the breath, because the breath is both an automatic function, right? We do it without being told, we do it without telling ourselves to, but it's also something that we can manipulate and can control and we can become conscious of. And so that ability to take your awareness to the point of managing your breath allows you to center, to stabilize, to start to regulate. And to your point about a longer exhale, so we know that when we focus more on the exhale of the breath, when we draw out the length of the exhale, we can start to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So we start to activate that rest and digest state, which, let's face it, we're in chronic states of stress. The collective is on fire, right? Everywhere we go, there's challenges presenting themselves. So there could never be a more relevant time than now to invoke this, because you're right, we are out here, we are looking
Yeah.
outside of ourselves, we are more concerned about things that are happening in other people's lives than what's happening in ours. And the time is really asking for everyone to put the focus back on self, take care of self.
Yes, most definitely. And that's that survival mode. So that hence of the shifting from surviving to thriving. And it
Hmm.
doesn't have to look like a material thriving, because it all starts within ourselves. As you so perfectly said, literally our cellular system shifts,
Hmm.
and the mind and the body connection. And so when you find that space, however that looks for each of us, of finding that center point, and being able to just kind of sit in it for just a little bit, to reset and allow to release,
Hmm.
right? Release tensions and thought patterns and things
Yeah.
of that nature. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and when we think about like, because I think some of us get stuck in our lives being like, oh, I've just always been this way. Like, I can't change. Oh, this is because these repetitive behaviors and these repetitive thoughts become personality traits, right? They become how we present.
Most
And I,
definitely.
and I
Yes.
think if there's one thing I can shout from the rooftops, it's like, you can change your mind. You can change your mind. It takes time and repetition and practice. Like, you didn't learn how to drive in 5 minutes. You didn't learn how to tie your shoes on the first go. Like, the mind learns through repetition. So
Mhm.
when we have like a consistent and committed breathwork practice, then we start retraining the nervous system how to respond appropriately. So when you start getting stressed, like you mentioned, sometimes people feel a bit of panic when they hold the breath. And that is because carbon dioxide levels are rising in the system. It creates sort of this stress response. Well, that's what happens when we are triggered and we're in a stressful scenario, is these rising levels of carbon dioxide. So what do we do to offset that? We take a deeper breath. We get more oxygen, right? But in the same regard, when we're practicing breath work, we can work intentionally with breath holds. And I have seen personally and in my clients a direct correlation between the ability to manage a breath hold and the ability to manage stress. It literally correlates to your capacity for life. So it's a really innate, embedded tool that we all have access to. And it doesn't have to be complicated. I know thousands of techniques, and I would love to share a little bit about Kriya. But it's just about showing up. It's just about committing a little bit. And like I said, so much can come up for people when they start committing to a self-care practice. So,
Yes. Yes, most definitely. Yeah. I've been there, and still it's a continuum even.
Hmm.
it's the layers and being able to navigate and have tools, resources, things that empower us to not allow the emotionality to take over
Hmm.
and just accept that our lives are chaos,
Hmm.
because that is the mind just really driving the bus there. you
Hmm.
know
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, the
Yeah.
mind is a beautiful tool. Like, we
Hmm.
don't want to not have a mind. We don't want to not have an ego. That is how we experience life.
Hmm.
The issue is when the ego and the mind step into the driver's seat, right? And then we just start living our lives on autopilot, these conditioned responses based on our experiences. And it's why I'd like to share a little bit about Kriya actually, because I think it's very relevant. Because we've all heard the term breath work, which is a very vague term, to be honest with you. It's really
Yeah.
just any sort of intentional manipulation of the breath. My training in India was very heavily rooted on Kundalini energy, which is this idea of this energy that sits at the base of your spine. It is your potential, and it sits coiled at the base of the spine. And through different activation techniques or different experiences, we can start to have this awakening of this energy as it starts to rise through the bottom of the energy centers and all the way up the chakra system. Um, and in the tantric tradition, we can use Kriya to help facilitate that sort of recognition of your ultimate potential, right? Your power,
Hmm.
like who you really are. And Kriya is a beautiful tantric energetic technique that combines a lot of different things. So we're combining work with the breath, we're combining work with your awareness using your dharana in Sanskrit to focus on different points of the body, different internal energy centers. We use breath synchronized with movement. Maybe the arms are moving in one direction or the fingers are moving and the eyes are following. So we use movement, mudra, different hand positions that help direct energy in the body. We use mantra, which is sound healing, right? These Sanskrit mantras have very deep, resonant tones to them that can really help the cells align to a specific type of energy, all different kinds of energy. So the thing that's cool about Kriya is I have fully believed that this is the original somatic practice. So as as more and more healing modalities are surfacing, somatics is becoming a buzzword for good reason, because we know that we can't talk our way out of a life challenge. We can't talk our way into change. It requires action. It requires retraining the body, right? Because your mind has been conditioned, but because the mind and body speak to each other, the body is conditioned too, right? The
Oh,
nervous
most
system.
definitely. Oh, yes.
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 So these practices, just the repetitive nature of them, what they're doing, syncing the breath with movement, with mantra, with eye movement, it's syncing everything. It's aligning the breath, the mind, and the body. So the default mode network might dim down a little bit, which is our conditioned responses, and we can start to feel things that we've maybe pressed down, maybe we've held in, things that we don't want to acknowledge, things that we don't want to address that are causing energetic blockages, causing chronic pain, chronic issues, chronic health issues, mental health.
Yes.
So yes, obviously I'm very passionate about practices.
Yes. And can you describe to us a person who is more in that survival mode? As you said, it comes up as, chronic fatigue or depression
Mm-hmm.
or what have you. You working with people, what you've witnessed their transformation by putting these practices into place, like
Mm-hmm.
how they were in the beginning, and then as they're moving through it, and then how are they thriving afterwards?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the one of the underlying themes I see in everyone is we kind of take the focus off of these what we've been told are really healthy practices, right? And it is good. We want physical activity, but we've kind of been told you got to go to the gym, you got to work really hard for that.
Mhm.
And then with diet, hydration, and those are things that I work on with people. But honestly, when we get to the root of the breath first, and we start committing to breath and meditation, then the other things honestly naturally kind of align. You'll find yourself being more drawn to nutritious foods. You'll find yourself wanting to get outside more because the body wants to be in a state of homeostasis, like it wants to heal. But what we're actually doing is preventing that from happening. So with consistent breath, one of the first things I always see, especially with people that have struggled like I have with, substance or alcoholism, is a decreased desire to self-medicate, whether
Mm-hmm.
that's through cannabis or alcohol. Many of my clients become sober curious. Many of them have stopped drinking altogether. I didn't even share that as part of my journey. I stopped drinking in 2018 after an 18-year, cocaine and alcohol issue, and was able to maintain that sobriety through these consistent practices. But there's always sort of this sober curiosity that arises. People start just increasing their level of self-awareness, and they start to see their relationships with more clarity,
Mm-hmm.
start to get more clarity on career, changes in diet. I see a lot of people reduce meat consumption and eat more plant-based with this work. But in general, I mean, what I've really seen over the last couple of years, honestly, because now I've been doing this for 3 years, and now I'm starting to have, right, people that have been working with me for some time. And I have a couple clients that just look like different people. And, I've got some before and afters up on my page because I'm also sort of a poster child for the depth of this work, because I literally look like a different person. I sound like a different person. My body type looks different, my skin quality, my hair, everything, because it's just aligning more to what nature wants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus what we think we want. Sorry, kind of going off on a tangent there.
Oh,
I'm
do
not even
not
sure what your original
apologize.
question was.
Yeah, that was perfect. Actually, it truly was, because we're so out here and people are, they're looking for something, although they're looking outside themselves. It's good to find a coach or somebody to help guide, but it's really all within us. And so, what the beauty of breath is, it's free, people. Are you hearing me?
Mm-hmm.
This is free.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need to really put a lot of money into it in the long run. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I connected with
Mm-hmm.
Haley, and because even though I do my own breathwork practice, she has a deeper, more, I wouldn't say, it was more of a routine and a practice,
Mm-hmm.
and really brought me into that internal landscape of me witnessing what was happening when I was doing certain breath work. And I
Mm-hmm.
tried all of them because I'm curious, right? And that's what it's all about too. And I invite all of you to really keep that open curiosity, to
Mm-hmm.
just, oh, I wonder how that would feel. Or, we have these visions for ourselves. We want a healthier lifestyle. We want to have abundance and all of these things, but we tend to forget it's all within us. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really that ripple effect from the inside out. As we're changing within ourselves with breath work or other practices, it really changes on a cellular level. You're
Mm-hmm.
changing your DNA, you're changing your brain, your neuroplasticity, you're creating new
Mm-hmm.
pathways. And just as you said, Haley, we don't have to think about driving a car anymore. Just
Mm-hmm.
as with mindfulness with me, now that I'm paying attention to my body, and when I'm in certain situations or interacting with people, it's like, oh, okay, I'm witnessing how maybe my
Mm-hmm.
shoulders are feeling a little heavier, or my gut. And then, okay, that's asking me to just pause, take a breath, and just witness what's really happening here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're working from the inside out, shifting from that survival mode, the fight, flight, or freeze,
Mm-hmm.
into more of the rest and digest. And this is where we thrive and where our body
Mm-hmm.
heals itself.
Well, and what's really fascinating too is this, just even the idea of rest and digest. Rest can be scary for some people. Taking time to disconnect from the outside world and really give yourself a deep level of restoration. Because I talk about this a lot in my teachings, that true stillness and silence can be unsettling, excuse me, to people at first. It can come up as extreme discomfort. because you've had this passenger, right? This monkey mind for most of your life. And
Yes.
sometimes the first few times you experience a deep level of shunya, which is just that deep void state, we can tend to pull ourselves out of it really quickly. And there's a lot of resistance to rest just in general in this society because we're so heavily conditioned and driven to produce, to make money, to work hard. And even the stories that were told in your house as a kid, you got to work hard if you want to be anybody,
Yeah.
you got to work your ass off, all of these things. And it's like, but do I? But do I? Like, could it be easier? Could I experience more ease and still be supported? Absolutely.
Absolutely. And that brings us back to your story and how you were working in the corporate world and you
Mm-hmm.
had enough courage to say, this isn't supporting me,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
right?
mean, it. Whew,
And
I
I'm
mean,
not
I
saying
started.
that corporate world is bad at all,
No,
by all means. It's for
no.
those who are feeling that there's something more and I
Mm-hmm.
have more to contribute. And I feel that this is a quote unquote dead end job, which they are not. They all serve
No,
a purpose. It's for those who are seeking or feeling that call that there's more.
right. It's the experience of. So it's. I'm not here to tell anybody what would make them happy, right? So if you are in a current corporate job and you love it, amazing. Like
Yeah.
awesome. It's great. It is really aimed. This conversation is kind of like aimed at the people who are unsettled, who know that
Yes.
they're meant for something else. And there's a lot that I had to work through before I left because you start coming to the realization that your life is really dictated by how you think and feel. And
Mhm.
so if you're just like, well, I'm done, I'm going to quit my job without doing a deeper layer of inner work, you'll just
Yeah.
carry the same habits and mindsets into whatever new
Yes.
position, whatever new life experience. So, and even I'm still unpacking a lot of things from my corporate career, right? Like the hustle and the drive and like I have a lot of energy. I can work really hard, but I have a tendency to burn out. And so I'm still kind of learning that delicate balance too. It's a lifelong
Mm.
practice of like ebb and flow. Um, but yeah, I mean, we're talking like lack issues, right? Like
Mhm.
maybe some subconscious beliefs hanging around that you can't make money doing what you love, that
Yes.
people in the wellness industry don't make money. I mean, the broke yoga teacher model is very alive and
Mhm.
everywhere. So it was a lot of like really looking at potential from limitless possibility, right? It's like, oh, well, if I'm not, I don't have to follow this model. I don't have to teach at a studio and get paid $15 a class. Like I can actually go further into my studies, facilitate a deeper layer of healing for myself, and then share the more depthful, the more
Yes.
dimensions of yoga in a different setting. And so, yeah, it's been really beautiful to experiment with that.
Yes. And I really have been there also to where I seek things for myself first and foremost. And
Mm,
then after having that experience, it's like, wow, everybody needs to know this. This is amazing. And
right.
so then bringing that forward from that space versus, oh, I want to do this in order to earn more money.
I love you, April.
So
I love
it's
you.
more about I'm here witnessing my expansion, witnessing all the parts of me,
Mm,
all of them, because you need all of those parts, even the darker ones. We need those in order to bring us forward and
mhm.
really step into our own expansion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, there's a very deeply embedded innate human need to want to serve others, right? Like we want to help. We're inherently helpers. And what I love about you and, some other really embodied leaders in this space and in our community is that our roles weren't chosen. We didn't look outside of ourselves and say, I want to do that. um, And that's something I talk a lot about too, as far as purpose and dharma goes. It's not something that you locate outside of yourself, that you pick a point on a map and say, like, I want to be a breathwork facilitator. Your dharma and purpose reveal themselves to you as you go, and they're changeable and
Yes.
mutable. And so it's, when talking about purpose and like, what's my purpose, it's like your purpose is to get to know who you are, and
Hmm.
your dharma, or like how you're going to bring that forth to the world, well, that's going to look different based on where you are in your journey, based on space
Yes.
and time. Like, there is no
Yeah.
finite, right?
So
But
true.
it's, this conversation's been coming up a lot, so it doesn't surprise me that we're having it here. But this idea of embodied leaders and really
Yes.
doing your own deep level of work before sharing with others, like really
Hmm.
mastering something
Hmm.
before you bring it out to the world. And that's what I love about you. That's where I stand in integrity with myself, is I do
Hmm.
not teach if I am not actively practicing. I don't teach yoga if I'm not actively meditating. I
Hmm.
don't teach, right? It's like, so I'm always sticking with the practice and watching it just continue to unfold new dimensions. It's beautiful.
Yes. And I thank you. Thank you for that. And I also want people here today and in the future, it doesn't matter when you're listening to this, you're listening for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that when you do witness somebody such as Haley or other embodied leaders, and you can really feel their energy and the light shining and everything, and it's like, oh, I so love Haley, I want to be like her. Although that's the mind, right, trying to
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, that's what you need to do right there, because it's creating this feeling, this connection. So
Mm-hmm.
understanding that there's a connection being made, it's not that you need to be a certain person or a certain
Mm-hmm.
type. It's also like igniting a spark within you to say, oh, I'm alive right now,
Mm-hmm.
this is feeling
Yes.
really good, and there's more to me than all this other stuff that I thought I was. That's the key right there, is
Mm-hmm.
to really feel that, know that that's like a light just sparking within you, the
Mm-hmm.
inspiration and motivation. And because a lot of people are like, what did you do, how did you get there, and all
Yeah.
these things, but everybody has a different path.
Yeah.
And it's really listening, because you'll find out, which I have on certain occasions, because I'm a human, right? I'm unlearning also. And so I'll find out as, oh yes, I love this person and what they do, and so I want to start doing that,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And then for example, I'm just going to say like tarot cards, or tarot cards. I love that. I love getting readings and things like that. And I looked into that and I took a class and everything, and then it just kind of like, nope, that's not it, it kind of fizzled out, so when you don't have that, it just keeps building and bringing to you, to a different place within yourself,
Mm-hmm.
instead of thinking, okay, this is for me because that person is amazing and I like getting
Mm-hmm.
readings or whatever that is. I think everybody's following what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
Just knowing that that's sparking something within you. And yes,
Mm-hmm.
there is more to you. And it's about you being with you and allowing to discover that and unpack that
Mm-hmm.
for yourself.
Yeah. And I think it's totally normal to have that urge, like when even your first like potent experience, whether it's like a Reiki session or a really potent intuitive reading or a breathwork journey or a yoga journey, it's so common. People will come up to me and be like, "Where was your where was your training? How can I do what you're
Yes.
doing?" And I'm like, "I get that, like fire and inspiration, but yes, that's exactly what it is. It's like something's been ignited,
Hmm.
and so right, like continue to seek out and work with more of that experience, that inspiration, that vitality. It doesn't, and like it's a compliment, right? When people come up and be like, I want to do what you do. It's like, right, like let's go as deep as we can first, because you can only take people to the level of depth that you've gone
Yes.
yourself. And if you haven't gone deep, you're gonna, sell your clients short too. um,
Exactly.
but yeah, it's I love this conversation because integrity is really important to me, and
Mhm.
um, this work, like we're not in this, we're not doing this to build massive revenue streams. Like the
Mhm.
reason we're doing this is to help the collective heal, because we know that healing ourselves spreads outwards. It affects other people. My journey has affected my family, my friends. It spreads, right, exponentially. So
Almost, yes.
um
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
we are the ripple effect. So whatever
we
you're
are the ripple
doing
effect.
for yourself, others can feel that. And they might not even know that you've a person's been doing breath work or yoga or whatever practices for
Mm,
well-being, and they could just sense like what's different about you. Something has shifted, it's
mm,
just not a haircut. It's
yeah.
more about your presence and the energy that you're carrying. And
Mm,
that's when you know that you are thriving. That's when you know that there's that aliveness within you. And abundance shows up in so many different ways with this. So it's connecting you to other people. As you had said, Haley, even relationships shifting and new
mm,
people coming in as your people are seeking and looking and asking for more, which is great.
mm.
Good.
Yeah. Well, there's a
Well,
there's a very deep impulse, I think, for more, more
yes,
healing, more experience, more sensation. So, yeah, I'm all for it.
wonderful. So those who are inspired to reach out to you, Haley, what is your contact information? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, yeah, you can. I put out a lot of content on social media because I'm a communication junkie. I was born to connect and talk to people. So I actually love social for that. On Instagram, you can find me at Haley.Nichel, Niichel. My business name is Breath of Rebellion. So you can head to my website at breathofrebellion.com. And I do have a pretty neat offering that might be out by the time this comes live. I'm not sure, for some ways to get you connected with a regular breath practice, to set you
Oh,
up,
wonderful.
to know what you need to do, to practice live, to practice not live, different types, styles. So yeah, that's coming very, very soon.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you, my friend, for being here and sharing your wisdom and your truth about
Thanks,
your
April.
own experience. Yeah,
Yeah, thank
it's
you.
great. Good. And I appreciate each and every one of you for being here with us today. And as I said earlier, it doesn't matter when you connect with this audio or video, you will also receive what is needed, right? That inspiration to allow your light to shine and to know that you're worthy of more than what you've been led to believe. Yes.
Mm,
And continuing our shifting from surviving to thriving series. Andrew Griffin will be with us, and he will share about his own experiences, also navigating through life's challenges and how he has been able to really find more about himself through his own practices. Yes. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Haley. Be well,
thank
my
you.
friends.